It's been a really good year for Steve McDonald. He's managed to get it together with Michelle, the barmaid. I just think that, you know, while they're so wrapped up in love with each other, they might forget about kind of pulling the, you know, Steve's daughter Amy's hair into that really, really cruel, tight top knot. I feel really sorry for the child because it just seems like if they carry on doing that, she's going to end up with a hairline like his. There's been big excitement with the arrival of John Stape. He's a teacher. Despite resembling a kind of smaller, plumper, less charismatic Curly Watts, he seems to inspire lust in all of the women that meet him. The one person who has had the upper hand over all the other Corrie women has been Rosie Webster. I don't quite know what happened. At one point she was a slightly miserable goth, and now every day she gets up and puts Paris Hilton's slut fancy dress on and plasters her face in makeup and then tries to give her teacher another blowjob. It's been a rather hectic year for Viv Hope over in Emmerdale, who has given birth to twins at the age of 50. She had them out on the moors.
I can't believe this is happening!
Shh, try and keep calm.
I bet you're all wishing that you watched Emmerdale now.
In July, the TV crisis engulfed the BBC. First, there was the Queen trailer cock-up. We were going to do a funny piece on that. And the phone-in scandals, including Blue Peter. We were going to cover that too.
This prompted all sorts of questions over how misleading the medium was as a whole, sending public trust in TV plummeting to an all-time low.
Do you believe anything you see on TV?
Yeah.
Would you mind just saying, for the purposes of this, that you don't believe anything? Is that all right? OK. Do you believe anything you see on TV?
No, not really.
Thanks to the relentless drip of scandals, TV had a complete nervous breakdown.
ITV boss Michael Grade pledged zero tolerance for anyone caught betraying the viewer's trust, although later in the year, when a report fingered Ant and Dec's zero tolerance turned out to mean zero. Anyway, it wasn't July's only storm. The news got its teeth stuck into a crisis at last as Britain went all aquatic. This gave the anchormen a chance to look hard, standing around in waterlogged streets, pissing themselves with excitement, which of course only made the situation worse. They also encouraged input from tiresome members of the public and occasionally got more than they bargained for, like this poor woman on Channel 4 News. But the floods were nothing compared to the nationwide weeping that accompanied the moving Concert for Diana, at which Emmy-winning comic genius Ricky Gervais paid fitting tribute by inadvertently causing the biggest car crash since 1997. Next, TV got a hammering for being ageist as 60-year-old Nick Ross left long-running Scarefest Crime Watch under suspicious circumstances.
And perhaps the last time that you will hear these words, don't have nightmares.
Older people are actually amongst TV's most loyal viewers, and nowhere is this more apparent than in the daytime schedules.
In the afternoon, OAPs are king, sitting at home surrounded by their Battenberg cake and their memories. They're a huge percentage of the ratings for chat show hosts such as the waspish Paul O'Grady or the tune-murdering Anthony Cotton. You know, I hope this is still going when I'm nearing death, because this is precisely the sort of thing that would really brighten up my last remaining days on the planet.
Could it be magic now?
Of course, the problem with tuning into the old folk slot is that all the adverts serve as a haunting reminder that one day you'll be infirm and wizened yourself. It's all self-consciously breezy sales pitches for stair lifts and walk-in slump-down shower contraptions, which look a bit like the sort of thing they'd hose a cadaver down in on CSI. My favourite afternoon ad is this one, in which a silver-haired Lothario attempts to lay some pipe supreme on a mature babe by impressing her with a microwaved ready meal.
This fish is divine!
Of course, the tragedy here is that that's actually the ghost of his dead wife.
Hello, Mr. Williams. Here are your meals. Roast beef, hot pot, lasagne.
I'm entertaining.
Give her one from me, Mr. Williams. Try to do it without breaking a hip. Game shows do particularly well with the oldsters. Sedate Puzzle 'em Up Countdown has been running for years, and more recently Grey Power has given Noel Edmonds a new lease of life in Deal or No Deal. Not that he seems particularly grateful to the older generation.
You are a miserable man. And probably the ugliest player we've ever had.
This year saw several new game shows being dangled in front of the eyes of coffin dodgers. Amongst the most successful was ITV's Golden Balls, a game of big cash prizes and relentless ball-related euphemism.
I am just the welcome to Golden Balls.
Now, a lot of people say Golden Balls is too complicated, but it isn't really. After all, it's just a show hosted by the increasingly eerie Jasper Carrot in which 12 sparkling balls containing monetary values ranging from £10 to £75,000 are combined with 4 so-called killer balls and randomly shared out amongst 4 contestants who then place them in rows with 2 on the front facing out and 2 at the back visible only to them. And they then take turns announcing what the secret balls are worth and try to decide if the other players are telling the truth or not, and then hold a vote to eliminate one of the players, and then the balls go back in, and then they add another 2 cash balls and a killer ball, and the 15 balls are shared out again amongst the contestants, who repeat the procedure of bluffing and voting until only 2 contestants are left, at which point they go through the 11 remaining balls, choosing whether to keep or eliminate each in turn without seeing what it's worth, and throughout this bit a running total of the accumulated value is kept, although a killer ball will reduce the value by a factor of 10, until finally they're left with a cash prize, which they then have to decide whether to split or steal, i.e. if they both choose split they share it, if one chooses steal they get the whole lot, and if they both choose steal they both get nothing. That's all it is, and what could be simpler than that? In August, all preceding culture was rendered redundant as mankind reached its creative peak.
You just see these eyes of this gorilla, and like the camera is slowly pulling out as Phil Collins is playing. Phil Collins is playing in the background. Why is Phil Collins playing in the background? I've got to find out. It's like a mystery. When the drums kick in, it's like. It's genius. Really like that.
A brace of cookery shows arrived in August. In fact, at times you couldn't switch on the box without being confronted by some with a whisk.
I love eating and I love cooking, but like you, I always feel I'm in a hurry and it can be hard trying to fit everything in. But I got the answer.
Servants?
In a word, it's express.
Oh. Express cookery turned out to consist of a bunch of ingenious kitchen shortcuts, which is handy when you're an ordinary person like Nigella, standing in a studio preparing roast boussin for a former Chancellor of the Exchequer while your multi-millionaire husband's off wiping Damien Hirst's arse with a banknote.
Delicious, darling.
Thanks, Pa.
Anyway, my favourite cookery shows of the year were Heston Blumenthal's In Search of Perfection, which often looked more like a cross between one of Dr. Gunther von Scaryhat's live Channel 4 autopsies and an episode of CSI, and Channel 5's Cooking the Books.
Welcome to Cooking the Books.
Not because of the content, but because even though it was just a bland, friendly sort of affair, host Jeremy Edwards seemed weirdly terrified throughout. Maybe because someone was perpetually screaming at him through that preposterously large earpiece.
Is that it? If you give me a spoon, actually, I'll use that to... spoon like this, one of these. Thank you very much. There you go, sir. Good.
In September, TV's woes continued as a judge kindly described the Jeremy Kyle show as a human form of bear baiting. Everyone knows the Jeremy Kyle show is shit, but sometimes it's worth analysing shit to see what's wrong with the body as a whole. And for my money, the biggest, steamiest and stickiest turd Kyle curled out this year was this. It was a special edition in which victims of abuse confront a convicted paedophile. Not in an earnest attempt to comprehend what makes a sex offender tick, but just so Jeremy, and by extension his viewers, could feel better about themselves by bellowing at someone utterly reprehensible. The circus achieved nothing, but a lot of rage got vented, mainly by Jeremy.
You picked a convicted paedophile over your own flesh and blood.
And not just for a few minutes, but for a full, pointless, insight-free hour, during which Jeremy postured.
You deserve it for the rest of your life, mate.
Whipped up the audience.
With your GNVQs of how not to be a pedo.
Shouted.
You raped your 6-year-old daughter.
Pulled increasingly unhinged facial expressions. And repeatedly used the phrase, "where I come from."
Where I come from, he crossed a line. That is pretty low, where I come from. Where I come from...
Until eventually you started thinking, you know what, I think Jeremy's getting off on this power just a little bit.
You should be monitored from now until the day you die.
Oh, and in case you're wondering, that went out at 9:25 in the morning. What a wonderful world.
That is what you will have to deal with for the rest of your lives, and you deserve it. I am back after this break.
Hello October, in which Channel 4 started celebrating its 25th anniversary, even though this year, like all channels, it was in the shit. All the networks had a rough time of it this year, and Channel 4 bore the brunt of much of the criticism, but it's worth remembering some of the good things it did, namely some of its dramas. 3 superb one-offs dealt with men haunted by incidents from their past. Secret Life, starring Matthew McFadden as a sex offender undergoing rehabilitation. The Mark of Cain, a furious fictionalisation of abuse at a military base in Iraq. And most recently, the intensely moving Boy A, featuring an outstanding performance from Andrew Garfield as a former schoolboy killer trying to build a new anonymous life.
These were flat-out brilliant programmes, not that Channel 4 drama always got it right.
Take Clapham Junction, which set out to be a thought-provoking look at gay issues, but ended up being a bit heavy-handed.
Some people might say that's shocking, but he isn't the only person to do that before heading out in public.
Eminently sensible observation that such overkill is fine.
Talk about Terry's bulging sack.
Also in October, Noel Edmonds asked,
"Are you smarter than a 10-year-old? Are you smarter than a 10-year-old? I could sit and listen to that all fucking day.
We're up to November now and the return of ITV's garish reenactment of Cannibal Holocaust. I'm a Celebrity. Get me out of here!
You know, it's worth noting that this year reality TV viewers have proved themselves to be a pretty liberal bunch.
They were appalled by racism in Celebrity Big Brother, turned off by Jim Davidson's homophobic nonsense in Hell's Kitchen. They voted for the first black winner of Big Brother, and when the King of the Jungle kissed his husband on live TV, no one batted an eyelid. Oh, and they let Pete Doherty win the X Factor. December means Christmas.
You can tell when Christmas is coming. The nights get darker, the air gets colder, and the toy commercials get more bewildering.
Meet Brian the Brain. He's robotic, chaotic, and totally neurotic. And he's way smart.
What's your password?
Chess. Brian plays games and is loaded with features.
200 billion.
Brian actually gets to know you.
Kill it!
Don't forget football at 4:30.
Brian the Brain.
I wouldn't want that in my house just in case it plunged a probe into my spine and turned me into a battery. Speaking of progress, it's good to see Iceland continuing to push the boundaries of what's considered edible.
With a hint of sweet chilli.
What next? Cheese elbows? Pork helicopters? Chicken lasagna squircles? Blockbuster ads featuring a galaxy of stars are becoming increasingly popular at Christmas. M&S have opted for a movie pastiche in which girls whore themselves in a bid to impress Antonio Banderas. Sainsbury's have given Jamie Oliver an army of tiny slaves whose hard work he doesn't even acknowledge, like a Asda continue their intensely patronising campaign in which celebs slum it with the proletariat in a bid to shift more units for the man.
Look at the rib capacity on this.
Now get back to stacking those shelves. Tesco have probably won overall by hiring the Spice Girls. Merry Christmas. Someone's singing voice has improved.
I'm looking for Christmas presents to surprise some girlfriends.
You know, Posh Spice is so bad in this, it's the first time in history a human being's been outacted by a trolley. I feel sorry for Morrison's, which looks like it had to make do with all the leftover celebrities no one else wanted. Oh, that Dermot Gavin.
You got enough in there, Alan?
Must be Christmas.
Yes, Alan. What a card. Well, that was 2007. I'll be back in 2008. And now, to play us out in a tribute to the late Ronnie Hazelhurst, who died this year, it's Matt Berry and his band with some music. Merry Christmas.